So he came to New York. The president of Ghana. He came to New York and he basically did a lot of symbolic gestures. And he laid the wreath or whatnot. Um, I think he spoke a little bit. So he did what he had to do. And this is the thing that really got me, right? You had this FBA group out there, foundationally Black Americans, whatever, foundational Black Americans. They're out there trolling him while he's doing the symbolism to recommence the wrongdoings of slavery and to honor the ancestors. They out there trolling them. This is why I always thought it was about skin complexion and skin color. It's not about the fact that they're Africans and these people are Americans. It's not even about that. It's about the fact that they're trying to find anything to put against Africans just without saying that it's about skin color. That's all that they're trying to do. And to me, like that's a very weak stance, like to even do that, you know what I mean? But they're doing it. So it's like it's not gonna work when you really think about it, because like the world has already proclaimed this to be the second decade for people of African descent, the international decade. And they're recalling, they're emphasizing, they're acknowledging. That's the important part. They're acknowledging. They're considering. And let me read this part right here, because this is interesting. It says, considering that the International Decade for People of African Descent has provided a framework that fosters action by states, international and regional organizations, civil society, people of African descent, and other stakeholders, and contributed to the progressive consolidation of an international agenda for people of African descent, can fully and effectively enjoy the benefits of sustainable development and all their human rights. So that just may be a factor in acknowledging and requesting compensation. I don't, me personally, I don't really think we need to rely on compensation. The thing we need to rely on is like, how can we get everybody to go back where they're from? That's the thing that I'm trying to understand. And Africans, right? I don't know how that's going to work with them, being the fact that they also have immigration status. I don't know how that's going to work with them, but I think like everybody needs to go back where they're from. And, if they want to set up new states, I'm fine with that. But it's like, how's that going to work? Because it's a lot of things that's at play right now. You have infighting going on among Black Americans, where you have some who are Pan Africans, some who are white Pan activists. Because it's a lot of coons out there, you know what I mean? So, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how this is going to work. All I know is that, I think there needs to be an African presence in America. Because like really, when you think about it, right, you got a lot of Hispanics below the Central and South American borders. A lot of Hispanics. Are they originally from Spain? If they're originally from Spain, they need to go back to Spain. There needs to be some recommence. Europeans. We know about white Americans, right? Europeans, they need to go back to Europe. Because we've seen over and over that, their political position in America is to get rid of Black Americans. That's been their whole political regimen since the World Wars had kicked off, was to get rid of us. So, and they've been doing that through mixing and stuff like that, taking money, taking resources and stuff like that. They've been doing that. Because right now they have control of all the offices. And you can't get them out of that through citizens arrest. You can't do that. That's not going to work. They got us in a pinch, and we got to figure out how we going to get out of this. That's the thing. And I don't think FBA is helping because they're acting like children right now. You know, they're constantly trolling Africans, and it's a bit it's trolling on both sides. But like FBA, that's a hate organization. You know, that's a hate organization. Let's face it, it's a hate organization. It's not a lineage. You may acknowledge it as a lineage, right? You may acknowledge it, but like once it get its founding parts, it's going to start to open up all these different offices. Then it's going to have a nonprofit. Then it's going to have this. It's going to have that. It's going to be considered, you know, what we all expect it to be. It's going to be for profit. So that's what they're doing right now. They trademarking things. They copywriting things. So let's face it, man. Like we need to find out how we can have an African presence in America, and also in Africa. That's the main key thing. We need to find out how we can have an African presence in America and also in Africa, and also in Asia, because if we're talking about, and also Europe, because if we're talking about, you know, this is the second decade for people of African descent, and no other people is being acknowledged for a decade. Like, okay, where does this leave us? Are we going to be the next? Are we going to be the next Jews? Or like, are we going to be the next people who have everything handed to them and we start to affect different political things? Because the way FBA talk to Africans, they don't talk to any other people the way that they talk to them. FBA do not talk to white Americans from a xenophobic point of view. They do not talk to Jews from a xenophobic point of view. They only talk to Africans from a xenophobic point of view. They're always berating Africans. They're always talking down about them. And that has to stop. You know, so we got to figure this out. And, you know, we got to figure it out. We got to figure this out. You know, look, it says right here, decides to extend the programs of activities for the implementation of the International Decade for People of African Descent, adopting a Resolution 6916 with the view to assuring continuing efforts in promoting the respect, protection, and fulfillment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms of people of African descent, and requests the office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights to provide the necessary support in this regard. I've never heard about Jews having an international decade, only Africans. So if we are the only ones who have an international decade for us, you know, that needs to be said. That needs to be said. So I don't know how. I don't know. I really don't know. It has underlying, recalling, considering, reaffirming, requests, also requests. Yeah, reiterating. So let's see what happens within the next 10 years. They have a permanent council out to solve the issues of people of African descent. They have a permanent council, you know? And I think the main thing that they need to do is secure the ground, because like right now, people can't walk around without, you know, antagonistic forces on the ground, you know, policemen, vigilantes, criminals, targeting people for their skin color and stuff like that. Like, we got to be very careful, and they have to secure the ground. That's what I'm saying. Like, we need African forces. Look, African forces should have been in America training. They should have been in American training. Like, they should have been on different routes where they can control who comes out of certain communities and who goes in. They should have been doing that on detail. They should have been a parapolice for the National Guard already. They should have been on the ground securing assets. Period. Period. You know what I mean? But they haven't. We haven't advanced as far. This has been a Donald Trump shit show. This is all it's been. You know? This is all it's been. So we got to figure out a way to get further along so we can start securing assets and, carrying out some of these rights and these protections. Some of these actions. Because this declaration is not going to go anywhere. This declaration is not going to go anywhere. It's going to be here. So we got to make sure that, it gets carried out and gets pushed through, That's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm hoping for. So stay abreast about what's going on. Stay abreast about what's happening in international news. I think the brother from Ghana, the president, coming to America, coming to New York, showing solidarity and support. I'm all for it, even if they were to take over reparations talk, like it's no reason for FBA to do what they're doing, because if they get reparations for themselves, they've already accepted the fact that African Americans can come back to Ghana if they want. But FBA is like, we're not from Ghana, we're from America, this blah, 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 blah. Meantime, they're not doing anything to better their circumstances while they're in America. They're not calling out police brutality at a rate that you think they should be, given the fact that police brutality is affecting them. Racism, white racism is affecting them. Racial discrimination is affecting them. The fact that they don't have all the jobs in the circuit lets me know that they're still being put through xenophobia by white power structures, and they're not saying anything about it. So that's another reason why I say that, they're not being honest about, this reparations talk. They're not being honest about it. They're not looking at Africans as like their brother or their sister. They're looking at it like, okay, these people are foreign. That's how they're looking at it. And that's the wrong approach. Because once you get further on, once you get to the point where it's just like, okay, you can find out through DNA testing, like how people are related, and you start to see them pop up on your charts and stuff like that, then that's the end of discussion about whose lineage is what, because they have the oldest lineage with African Americans. So it's like, how can you say this is lineage based? Like, you cutting yourself off from your father and your mother by talking like that. You know what I mean? Like, these people are not thinking at all. They're going off of emotion. And when it's led by emotion, you got to know it's about skin color. They do not like the fact that Africans have a dark tone. They don't like that. And I can speak from existence, right? I know exactly how it was when I was growing up in Chicago. Most of the stuff you see in Chicago, Detroit, and Philadelphia is based off colorism. It's based off colorism, exactly. No difference, no misunderstanding of what's going on. It's based off colorism. All the attacks, all the violence is based off colorism. If someone steps on your shoes and smudges your shoes and he ends up in the shootout, that's colorism. Period. So we'll see how it goes. You know what? Secure the ground. I support foreign forces coming. If you want to call them foreign, I support African forces coming into America and securing the ground. I support it. The way we see America like right now, it's not going to be this political position, view we have right now of what we're calling America or what we see as America, it's not going to be that in the next 20 years. I can tell you that right now. I think America have a much larger African presence by then. You know what I mean? Um, I think so. Because the way that Africa has accepted the fact that they want to reconnect families, Africa has already accepted the fact that they want to present a bold and uh, reintegration into African societies. So if they're allowing that to happen on that side, they're eventually going to let it happen on this side of on the Atlantic in America. They're going to eventually allow it to happen. So we just got to present ourselves and know what's going on and do what we have to do to make sure that happens. Great peace, Yakoki.